This year, we are excited and honored to have Father Jerry Orbos as our keynote speaker. Father Jerry is a priest and cancer survivor who was diagnosed with lung cancer in February 2018. For months, he underwent chemotherapy and immunotherapy, or what he coined in jest as chemonotherapy. He always reminds cancer patients to focus on the humor, not the tumor. On January 15, 2019, he was declared cancer-free with no recurrence by his oncologist. The Divine Word Missionary went from cancer patient to patient advocate to becoming an ambassador for Hope from Within, an advocacy campaign. Father Jerry Orbos, over to you.
Hello, dear friends. Happy to be with you. And let me start with a question. Simple arithmetic. Here goes. 5Q plus 5Q equals 10Q. Thank you. I like to start with gratitude. Thank you, we're still alive. Thank you, Lord, that this pandemic will end soon. That's our hope. And thank you all health workers, frontliners, essential workers, those involved in research, medicine, treatment, care, and nourishment of people, especially the sick and the infirm. Thank you to the International Alliance of Patient Organizations for this opportunity to honor the men and the women who help us cross over from the night of COVID-19 towards a new day, hopefully towards new learnings and realizations to make us better persons in a better world. On hindsight, we ask now, okay, so what have we learned? What are the realizations that we bring with us into the new world tomorrow? Have we really learned? Let me share with you an experience I had when I was a little boy, growing up in a small town called Bani, Pangasinan, here in the Philippines. You know, December for me was the most awaited month. Why? Christmas. December 8th was the birthday of my mama and the fiesta in our town. So after the mass, morning mass of December 8th, I remember it was a privilege that we could ask from mama, number one, balloon and ice cream. What a treat for a boy once a year. And I remember I was eating my ice cream, and then you know what happened? On my left hand, my balloon flew away. And I was crying and crying, saying, my balloon, my balloon. I was crying and crying. And then I heard a voice from my mama that said, Jerry, you better eat your ice cream. It's melting already. Dear friends, let us not focus on the could have beens and the should have beens. We should focus on what we still have. You still have your ice cream. Let's not focus on what is missing, but the blessings. Let's not focus on the mistakes, but the learnings. But dear friends, I ask you today to remember all this pandemic would have been a waste if we have not learned anything at all. What is the first lesson? For me, the first lesson we should have learned is that, you know, before the pandemic, we were so focused on the work of our hands. The money in our hands, the profit, you know, the connections, the power, it was all here. Wow. And we have forgotten the love in our hearts. Dear friends, You know, the first thing you have to realize is humankind. What happened? Many of us have forgotten how to be human, and many of us have forgotten to be kind. These are the two things that make us really human. Human from the word humus, Latin word, which means earth, soil, hence the word humility. We have forgotten to be humble to someone greater than ourselves. We have forgotten to be humble to each other, thinking that we can do it all alone. Oh no, we need someone greater than us to help us. We need the help of one another. The other word is kindness. We have forgotten that others have rights. We were so focused on what we wanted, and we didn't have much care about what others needed. We have even forgotten to respect Mother Nature, Mother Earth. Yes, we have forgotten that we can heal and we should heal as one. You know, the COVID-19 was the great equalizer. Rich or poor, whatever race, whatever religion, we all were so afraid of that virus. But you know, let's not go back to that anymore. Let's move on. Still have your ice cream, remember? And so let's focus now more on, you know, many of us were running empty in the heart. It was all about the hands. Let's go back to the values of the heart. Maybe a better world will come out of this dark night of COVID-19. And many of us were so free to go anywhere, but many of us were prisoners. POW, prisoner of work, prisoner of worry, prisoner of waste, prisoners of whatever. Dear friends, we have to realize that it's people, not things, that make us truly happy. Use things, love people, and not vice versa. And please remember, we have forgotten that we've become so professional, and we have forgotten to be personal. I remember a story about two professional killers who were hired to shoot somebody at 9 p.m. So these two guys were waiting in ambush the dark night for the subject to pass by, and they were shooting. And he was delayed, 9:15, 9:30, he wasn't showing up. So professional killer number one said, he's not yet here. And professional killer number two said, yeah, I'm getting worried. I hope nothing bad happened to him. Professional, but still personal. Keep that balance and we'll be okay. Yes, dear friends, we are all just passing by. I have nothing against being professional. By all means, please excel in your profession. By all means. But please don't forget, you are a person and you're dealing with persons. Yeah, it reminds me of a famous surgeon who was asked, Doctor, what is your greatest fear? And the doctor said, well, I'm going old. And the interviewer said, do you fear that your hands will become unsteady, you know, and with the passage of time? And you know, the surgeon said, you know what, my greatest fear is that the time will come when I no longer feel the pain of the people I cut, and forget that this is a person, not just another patient passing by. Let's go back to the heart. That's where we really find and we discover who we really are. And let us heal as one. Let's cooperate, coordinate across borders, reach out to one another, and whatever obstacles come our way, let's heal together. Remember, the one stick in the broom cannot do anything, but together, they're bound together. They can be the broom can be very, very helpful. Well, inter is the big word today. Interdiscipline, intercultural, that's it. We just have to share. We are all connected. Keep that in mind. And, you know, I started with a question. Let me end with a question. What is the 11th commandment? Somebody said the 11th commandment is don't take yourself too seriously. Dear friends, don't forget humor and joy in our lives. Let's not take so much pride in our achievements, in our talents, and our power. All these things can be done in one flick of a finger. Please learn that life is not just about solving problems, it's celebrating. Well, I had lung cancer in 2018. That was a difficult time for me. Left lung lobectomy, 4 sessions of chemotherapy. It's not easy, but you know what? It's light. Why? Well, the joy of the Lord is my strength. I chose to be happy. Happiness and joy should not depend on things or people outside. If that were your definition of happiness, you'll never be happy. There will never be perfect situation, perfect people around us. So my battle cry when I had cancer, and my battle cry now is focus on the humor, not on the tumor. Many times we're so focused on the tumors of life, our lives, other people's life, the society, government, and everything, the church. Hey, let's not become mega stars. Believe and keep on believing in goodness. Please don't give up on that. And please don't forget too, there are 3 important looks in life, okay? The first look is what we call the outlook. Positive outlook is so important. Second look is the side look. Be mindful of people around you. There are people who have bigger problems than you. And one more look, the outlook. There is someone, whatever name you call him, there's someone, keep believing in this someone who is really interested, who is really involved in you and in me. But dear friends, amazing, you know, when I had cancer, I realized that angels are real. And many of them are in white robes with stethoscopes. Thank you, health workers, the medical staff. I thank God for the machines that are used. It's amazing. PET scan and all that, and medicines, the discipline. Yes, thank you. And thank you for the human body that can really cope with almost anything. Of course, let's not forget the creator of our human bodies. One thing I would like to ask you all is not to forget BTS. Korean boy band. Well, it's more for us. Believe, trust, surrender. Please learn that. To believe that you are loved. To trust that God will help you, people will help you. And you surrender and believe there is a beautiful plan ahead. Someone is at the controls. You're never alone. And please treasure your peace. Many of us don't have peace. You know why? One reason, the first one is overthinking. Many times we think we can solve everything without help. So many of us end up lacking sleep. We end up worrying, we keep rewinding the past, we keep fast forwarding for the future. Maybe what we should learn from now on is to trust God more. A lot of things beyond our control. So please pray for the grace to learn how to trust. Number two, no peace, maybe because you are overhurting. A lot of backaches, hurts, unforgiveness. It's all here in the heart. And what a waste of time going through life with all these negativities in your heart. Pray for the grace of forgiveness. Learn to forgive. Let go. It's okay. All will be well. Maybe that's what we should start learning. And one more, why do you not have peace? Maybe because you're overfighting. You want to be on top of everything, you have to be so right. And someone said many times it's better to be kind than to be right. And hey, please don't forget, overfighting, the key is humility. Pray for the grace for humility towards God, towards one another. That way we can work better together. Anyway, one more thing, please. I hope we learn not to play the game of ICE. ICE. Anytime you play this game, you'll never be happy, and people around you are not happy. The game of impositions. Impose everything, standards from everyone. C, the game of control. You want to control everything and everyone. We can't. We should not. And E, expectations. Feel miserable when our expectations are not met. So stop playing the game of lies. Be good to yourself. Be good to people around you. And you know what? I'd like to ask you one more question. I started with a question, so one more question. You know the movie Frozen? What is the theme song of the movie Frozen? Let it go, right? Okay, so let it go. Shall we sing it? Some of you have not sung for a month, 2 months already. And the song says, let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. Speaking words of wisdom, let it go. Yes, amen. Let it go and let God. Finally, let me end with my reflection of the chopsticks. Senior citizen, I forgot the chopsticks. Would you give me a moment, please? Here it is, the chopsticks. You know, what is the lesson of the chopsticks? It's easier to break up than to stay together. Easier to destroy than to build. How far easier is it? Please continue to stay united no matter what. Hold on, okay? Second lesson of the chopsticks is this. You don't hold the chopsticks very tight. You hold it just right. Just right. Not too tight, not too loose. Learn that. The other lesson of the chopsticks is if the chopsticks are not equal, it's difficult to use the chopsticks. So learn to adjust, wait for each other, be patient, patience, 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 patience. And you look, when you use the chopsticks, only one is moving, the other one is just steady, right? What does it mean? When somebody's talking, please listen. Listen to understand, not just to respond. We need to listen to one another. Finally, the lesson of the chopsticks is don't chop each other, stick to each other, because we have a mission together. God bless you all. Take care, and I bless you all. Amen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father Jerry, for reminding us to relearn the things we already know but take for granted. It's better to be kind than to be right. I'm guilty. Thanks for reminding me. All the progress we will make in the health space will be irrelevant if it doesn't take into account the humanity of the patients we serve. For us to be effective and truly responsive patient advocates, we have to serve with joy, empathy, and compassion. We have to come together to combine our knowledge and wisdom to come up with the best ideas and solutions to make the world a safer and sustainable home. And for us to survive as a race, I think there's no other way to do it. I'm sure Father Jerry sparked other kinds of introspection. Feel free to post your musings on social media using the hashtag APPC 2021. Let's now listen to the reflection on the keynote of Professor Tan Kok Hian. Professor Tan is the Group Director of the SingHealth Duke-NUS Institute for Patient Safety and Quality. Over to you, Professor Tan.
Thank you, Cara, and thank you to the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity to talk after Father Jerry. I think it's a fantastic, insightful talk because I learned really a number of things. The first thing is, you have to be professional and yet personal. And in fact, the personal is just as important as the professional part for a healthcare academic like myself. The second thing is that all of us are going through COVID pandemic. And you see, the theme for this session is recovering together through compassion, insight, and co-creation. And what Father Jerry has said was, it's very important, that it is important to take care of the well-being of the patients and of the staff, the healthcare providers who are providing that. And he mentioned a couple of things, in fact, which is very important for the well-being. First, be grateful. Second, look at your blessings itself. So that actually enables you to be on a steady, steadfast mode to be able to cope through the crisis. I just like to focus on one aspect which is relating to compassion, the very first word here, and try to reflect as what Father Jerry had said. Next slide, please. First, what is compassion? Compassion means to suffer with, right? When you're compassionate, you feel the pain or you recognize that the person is in pain and you want to do something to alleviate the person's suffering, as in COVID. And what Father Jerry says is part of kindness, right? Kindness is act of generosity and also the act of compassion. Next, please. So I bring you to two figures here, two compassionate figures here in Asia. First, Lao Tzu, who advocate returning to the nature, probably the first green philosopher in the world. And of course, Buddha, who has the Buddhist teachings to overcome suffering. Next, please. Now, as I reflect on what Father Jerry Orbos has said, exactly what he has said actually forms what actually Lao Tzu has mentioned. The three treasures of life, guard it and keep them. And what are they? Compassion, right? Frugality, what Father Jerry says about not having excess of worries, excess of things that can be done. And of course, the third thing he mentioned was humanity. And of course, the first of these three treasures that we need to guard is compassion. Next slide, please. Coming to the Buddhist virtue, compassion is also one of the 4 Buddhist virtues to cultivate. Compassion or karuna, right? Just now, compassion was chi in Chinese. This is in India, karuna. And there's a way to actually cultivate that. So I'm interested, as we go through the COVID environment, right? We need to have compassion, right? Can this compassion, is it innate or is it can be cultivated? And the Buddhist virtue say, yes, it can be cultivated. Next slide, please. So at the same, do everyone, what makes a patient a patient? A patient is one who requires or receives medical care. The English words patients come from the meaning meant one who suffers. So you have compassion for the patient, you suffer with one who suffers. Next slide, please. So we come here to two compassion figures in medicine, Hippocrates, the father of medicine, and William Osler, the father of modern medicine. And to both of them, compassion is one of the most important attributes for physician practicing medical services. And that's also for any healthcare staff. Next, please. Hippocrates is famous for putting up this very famous oath, as well as to mention about the word cure sometimes, treat often, and comfort always. And this is put by Edward Trudeau in this very famous phrase, to cure sometimes, to relieve often, and to comfort always. So our role as healthcare staff and as well as everyone is to always to comfort someone in our care. Next, please. And of course, William Osler says that the good physicians treat the disease, but the great physicians treat the patient who has the disease. Exactly what Father Orbos have said. You know, professional and also personal. You consider the person, the patient, as a person. Next slide, please. So in this COVID era, there are three issues which I just want to bring up very briefly. Firstly, the professional doctor-patient relation has often been paternalistic. We need to make it more personal, to treat the patient as a partner, right? Second, there is decreasing empathy because why? Medicine is getting more technical and scientific, especially in the COVID environment, you know, where somebody in ICU and you cannot actually meet the person, you have to be quarantined, and a lot of people find difficulty being with their loved ones when they are ill, right? So I think it's important to be able to come up with programs, to be able to nurture that compassion and able to help out people along the way. And of course, there's a growing concern of healthcare worker burnout. What Father Jerry has said, be kind to yourself and be kind to others, right? Need for self-care, self-compassion, and joy at work initiatives. Next slide, please. So in our institute, we always feel that a culture of patient partnership is important among all the other cultures, like speak up culture, safety culture. It is very important to have, to promote this culture, as well as to mitigate counter cultures like paternalistic culture, so as to improve patient safety and the quality of care, the personal quality of care we given to our patients. Next. So in fact, I think it's always very important to have patient advocates with us, and we have formed a patient advocacy network. And that's basically to be able to feel what the patient is, right? So recently, one of our patients, Nico Lim, who has a chronic disease, speak at our ceremony, and she talked about various things: patience, affirmations, reassurance, open mind, explain, accompany, chatting, music, impassion, and smile, as part of the things that will help the patient to recover and to help the patient to feel better. See, I wanted to be treated like a normal person, just with a bit more understanding, right? So that's just having patience as part of your partner, because we are actually in it together. Next. And we did a survey within our healthcare cluster, 6,000 staff, and we found that there's a high level of burnout, right? Emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, lack of personal accomplishment. And we also studied high burnout level is associated with lower empathy among SingHealth medical staff. So it's important to deal with the burnout of our healthcare staff as well. Next. And we have many programs that come up. We call it the Joy at Work framework. In view of time, I won't be going through them. Next, please. And we have come up with programs to look at increasing choice and autonomy, physical and psychological safety, wellness and resilience, camaraderie and teamwork, participation and communication. Next, please. Okay, Father Jerry was saying about being kind to others, and we are very happy that in this COVID environment, the patients and the public are actually kind to the healthcare workers. They cheer us on itself. So this is the article about be kinder to the healthcare workers. And next, finally, our patient advocacy network have actually produced a video to thank and cheer on our healthcare staff during the COVID pandemic. And support is very important. Next. So just to end, what I've said is that compassion and various values can be cultured, right? Can be cultivated. And patient partnership and health system support for healthcare providers is vital to nurture and cultivate compassion. So I thank you very much for your attention. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor Tan, for your reflection. I like what you said about the culture of partnership between doctor and patient. I was once a patient many years ago, and I know what it's like to be in a paternalistic relationship. I can tell you it's not nurturing and it's not productive at all. Thank you for reminding us about self-care. And it's also, the healthcare system is becoming more impersonal as we become more technical and move towards AI. So that's why this year's theme emphasizes compassion. And in case you're wondering, this is why we invited a Catholic priest as keynote. I'm now pleased to introduce Maria Fatima Garcia Lorenzo, President of the Philippine Alliance of Patient Organizations, who will also respond to Father Jerry's keynote. Over to you, Fatima.
Thank you, Cara. Before I respond to Father Jerry's keynote message, please allow me to share a short background on PAPO. The Philippine Alliance of Patient Organizations, or PAPO, is a coalition of 38 patient organizations advocating for universal access to healthcare and allied services, and is a member of the International Alliance of Patient Organizations. We aim to empower Filipino patients, including persons with disabilities, through education, networking, policy advocacy, and capacity building. PAPO advocates for meaningful reform in 3 fundamental areas in order to improve the quality of healthcare in the country. 1 is respect for patients' rights. 2 is universal health care. And 3, patient participation in health policy making. How can we care for patients when we, as caregivers, are recovering? How can we do our work when systems are overburdened, fragmented, and almost dysfunctional? In order to recover, we need to exercise deeper compassion to develop new insights to this highly disruptive environment. Doctors need to listen to patients more. Patient groups need to increase their capacity and work with other groups to learn better. We need to exercise heroic patience and compassion in order to develop new insights that can address the wide divide. We need to be more adaptive as leaders in order to generate solutions to this crisis brought about by the COVID pandemic. We need to have new programs that seek collaborative learning and co-ownership of issues to facilitate these deeper insights. And as we do this, we also enable new arrangements that are co-created with patients, doctors, and other health leaders. Father Jerry spoke of COVID as a great equalizer. But as he did, a number of questions came up. How do I tend to my own losses, but at the same time recognize those that have lost family members as I have? How do I rise from the litany of grief brought by the news of death, news of friends close to dying, or news of friends that have lost multiple family members? I agree with Father Orbos here that the losses are not only deep, but prevalent. At the same time, I disagree with Father Orbos that COVID equalizes. During this pandemic, the poorer families had much less access to health as doctors became overburdened and hospitals filled to capacity. The pandemic widened the inequity and increased the number of poor families immersed in fear of COVID with no clear information or support of health service. But when I rise from my own losses and sorrow to exercise compassion, I realize I develop new insights to caring. In KITE, a foundation which cares for children with cancer, we went beyond our usual practice and provided food for the children and their families during lockdowns. We had online listening sessions with the parents to let us examine what we needed to change with our system. We were able to develop deeper ways to care with our volunteers, the doctors we work with, and the KITE team who also had losses in this crisis. What have we learned together in coping with this crisis? Patients learned new skills with online events. I remember patients and the families celebrating Halloween online. A few months before, and at first, they were afraid of using Zoom. I know some of you can relate. But the time we had our Halloween online party, they were very comfortable wearing costumes and playing games in front of the screen, complete with live action and online emoticons. Our volunteers have learned new ways of facilitating group engagements. They have developed new skills to improve online content. Our volunteers now know how to do video editing and virtual storytelling. In all of these, I have learned new ways of caring and establishing presence. I have learned new ways of approaching donors that they may appreciate online engagements in helping us care. Our donors have learned through us that children with cancer and their families are very vulnerable during this time of COVID due to the lack of access to health. And they have also co-created ways of caring with us. We have established new arrangements with our patients and volunteers. We pivoted from face-to-face interactions to online child life services and psychosocial care. And the volunteers held Celebrate Life parties with patients via Zoom. These new practices uplifted the spirits of the patients and their families. And they now look forward to these rituals that enable them to cope with the crisis. Father Jerry pointed out the value of human kindness. I believe this. But I want to emphasize that we need to exercise human kindness within our programs and purposive intervention to generate new behaviors new arrangements, and new ways of coping with this deep and disruptive crisis. This is the level of co-creation we need to achieve. In times of COVID and widespread crisis, we need to exercise develop issues. These must bring new learnings and insights to those involved. And these new insights must change perspective and create new arrangements. If I may close conversely and to remind you simply, in times of pandemic, compassion without learning does not bring new behavior and will not lead to co-creation. In other words, it is not enough to exercise sympathy. Exercise compassion that results to new behavior. This is the way to collective recovery. Thank you.